super good to be here with you guys. Just a couple of years ago, I was sitting in your spots right where you are. During COVID, I was taking this class, so I know exactly where you guys are at. And as I sat there in your positions, I admired the people who come up here and presented and wanted to be like them. So for me to be here now, it's a huge honor. It was kind of a bucket list item for me to be able to come and do this and speak. So I think I've made it now. I'm done. I've succeeded in all that I need to. I can go home. If this goes well, obviously. If it doesn't, then I guess I'll have to come back. She told it all. I run these 3 companies right now. And I will explain a little bit about them kind of individually as they tie into kind of what I've learned. But before I tell you my story of kind of how I got to where I'm at, I wanted to just mention this because I think that, again, 2 years ago, as I was in your guys' spots, I was looking to be just like the people that would come up here and start something big and do all of these things. But entrepreneurship is an interesting thing, and there's absolutely no one way to do it. And that's what I hope you guys will recognize as we go through this, is that there absolutely is not, this is not becoming a doctor. You don't take a test, take a class, take a test, and you're a doctor. There's just no way. And what works for someone may not work for somebody else. We always, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's like a lot of decisions, and we want to make it seem more like this, but in reality, you start out in the parking lot and you have no direction. It's definitely not either this way or this way. You have literally all of the opportunity in the world to go. There's really no one path. I'll tell you a little bit about kind of where I came from and how I got here right now. So my first company I started was in high school. I lived next to the guy who started Black Clover. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand. They had the whole Jimmer Fredette and all those guys in the early 2000s, I believe. So I was really inspired by that because he was this golf pro at the golf course that I grew up on, basically, and he started this apparel company, and that little golf course is where it all began. And so I was really inspired by that. So a buddy and I were like, hey, they started this company kind of out of the blue for what appeared to me just no reason. You can just start anything and it'll just pick up and you'll be in great shape. I learned pretty quickly that that's not the case. You have to really put in a lot of effort. So even as a high schooler that never did my homework, I was like, I'll just make this happen, make a quick meal, and get out of Dodge. So high school came along. We were like, oh, you know what? Let's start this golf grips and apparel company, kind of like Black Clover. We had no direction. We were having a good time. So we spent all the money that we had, and it never really got traction. And when it went to college, and was still attempting to do that my first semester of college, and at some point I just was like, this it's not working very well. Why am I not making sales? And a mentor that I met here was just like, what does this even solve? And I was like, I don't know. I just liked it. It was fun, and it didn't really solve a shark bite of a problem that people really felt. And so then that's when I started to get a little bit more serious about maybe this isn't so easy. It's definitely more of a science than it is just go out and see what happens. But during all of that for me, I was still thinking I was going to go off and be a dentist for whatever reason. I wanted to own my own business, and that most dentists own their own little practice, right? So my freshman year of college, I came in and was trying to get involved there. I was going up to the University of Utah, doing these pre-interviews for dentistry. I got involved in some research projects here, and so for a summer, dedicated myself to doing this research project, and it's wild. So what we were testing out in this research project, when I was a freshman, we were doing this with 3 other guys. We were going to find out if baby food GMO versus non-GMO baby food made a difference, like in like the post generation. So like the children of the children, if they had birth defects based on these things, it was like epigenetics. So like your DNA, does GMO, a certain GMO alter your DNA? So I spent all summer long going into this giant freezer with these fruit flies that we were testing out on, waiting for them to fall asleep in the freezer, because you can make flies fall asleep in the freezer, which is kind of wild, and looking at their butts to see if they were deformed, or their wings to see if they were deformed. It was cold. It was really cold in there. So in the middle of the summer, I'd have just like jackets, everything, like my whole ski gear on, walking across the street in the middle of the summer to walk in this freezer for a few hours and look at all these fruit flies. As we were doing that, we thought of this idea, oh, well, what about we could also test like sleep patterns during this. And so while we were testing these sleep patterns, we were trying to come up with a way to figure out how we could actually track that, like whether they were asleep or not. And we came up with this really cool project. We involved a couple of the engineer professors, basically got these like diode like lights and lasers, and it would shoot through these tubes, hooked it up to some software we kind of built, and basically if the fly would move, it would disrupt that laser flow, and then it would it would trigger something. And so then the software on the back end, we would just build, like, if 30 minutes went by and nothing triggered, it would like consider a fly asleep. Super random, I know, and I'm sure nobody wants that now. But at the time I was like, this is so cool. Like we just built this awesome thing. Nobody's gonna want it, but it was so cool. It solved a real life problem that we were facing. That was kind of a turning point for me when I was like, I don't want to drill and fill my whole life. I don't want to just be a dentist my whole life. Like I want to like create things for people and solve problems that people face in the real life, in the real world. Everything that we have is because of that idea. There's not a solution that hasn't been come up with by someone. There was a problem that existed and someone decided to solve it. So that's where I kind of started to get into, maybe I want to make this like a career. Like I just want to build things for people and, create new opportunities. I'm a Wild West kind of guy. I just wanted to discover new things. And again, that hardware and software we built is lost to history now. Nobody used it. We got like this like $7,000 grant, and we actually accidentally lost it all. And I mean, losing $7,000 as a freshman is a really big deal. I don't know if you guys have ever lost $7,000, but that's a lot of rent. So then I decided to switch. I got out of dentistry. I decided to just jump in, and I just want to be an entrepreneur. I just want to own my own company and work on my own stuff. I was driven. So I started a bunch of coming up with ideas and things like that, and that's where I got probably my greatest achievement, which is not winning any of the pitch contests that we have. I mean, if I had a plaque for that, I'd hang that right front and center. So I came up with some ideas and got connected with some people, and throughout my undergrad came up with a couple of companies. I don't even know if I want to go into each of them right now, but I will to a couple of them. But they usually, for the most part, didn't work out super well. Couple of them were really good ideas, really good things, and then something came out of the blue and struck us. The one I will mention is the street credit was I really like this idea, and I wish it could have made it somewhere. Basically, I didn't actually come up with this idea, but I saw someone pitch this in one of the pitch competitions I was in, and he won. And I said, that is a really good idea. So I went up to the kid after and I said, I will build this for you. Like, let's make this together. I told him why I wanted to be on this, and he said, yeah. So in a way, I secretly won that pitch competition because I got the money in the end, I think so. So we jumped on the bandwagon together and started building this thing. Basically, it was for college students who don't, you're not building your credit as you're in college, right? Unless you have a credit card or something. You don't own a home. You're not paying like a bill necessarily to be able to build your credit with Experian, with all those guys. So we came up with a method to basically, through this application, renters could pay to rent rentees could pay to rentors, and basically that would be reported to the Experian and the credit reporting agency, so you could build your credit while you're in college and get out of it. So we got deals going with like the Levitt Group. We got connected with Experian. We got connected with all of them. We were like rearing to go. And right about when we were about to put in all of our money and start working on this, one of our competitors ended up kind of defrauding Experian by, they would give it to like a bunch of mortgage people who owned houses would pay themselves rent and build their credit, kind of cheating. So then they decided to do away with the rental thing. So super good idea. Unfortunately we weren't able to do anything because at that point, credit reporting agencies wouldn't work with us. But again, all this to say is these things taught me so much about business. Even though they didn't like take off, they taught me so much that I would need to know for the next things. So I get through most of my college career. I'm about to graduate, and I'm like, shoot, I don't want to go get a job. I really like working on the things that I'm working on. What do I do? So what do? When you haven't made it, you get a master's degree, right? Here I stand with a master's degree. So I got my master's degree. During that time is when I kind of started to strike a little bit more gold. I learned from my mistakes. I learned from the not so good ideas and the ideas that just didn't quite make it for whatever reason, and kind of came to these few things here. So I first started this company right at the end of my senior year called SETA Dental, and basically what it was is I was trying to frame it as like Tinder for dental work. So basically I got a bunch of the dentists in southern Utah to like kind of give me kind of bios of themselves and like what work they do. And then what I would do is, we'd do some advertising and things like that, and it'd run people through this super, like it looked really nice, but it was literally like a Google form that I just hid the edges on and made it look like it was a real thing. And they would just fill out this form to say, I'm afraid of dentists. I need to be knocked out for a dentist. Like all these questions we have because most people don't like going to the dentist. And would basically then pretend like it was a software that was pairing it with people, but it was really me just looking through a spreadsheet being like, I think you live close to this one, and and so that started to pick up pretty well. What I realized through that was that dentists are terrible at marketing. They are awful. Don't tell any of them that. But they hire receptionists to answer phone calls, and that's all those receptionists are hired to do, right? So when I say, hey, so-and-so knows who you are, is really interested in coming to the dentist, would you please reach out to them? They'd call and say, hey, do you want to come to the dentist or whatever? And they'd be like, who is this? And they're like, oh, this is so-and-so dentist. And like they were just like, nah, I don't know who you are. And they're like, oh, we don't know who you are. Goodbye. Like it was like I'd listen to some of these phone calls just in awe at how bad they were, like reaching out. And that's fun. Like that, a receptionist, their job is to answer the phones and get people scheduled, not reach out, not necessarily be the salesperson. And so I said, okay, how can I solve that issue? So then I started to come up with a method I started to build a software to basically automatically text these people and just schedule them like using a little bit of AI and a little bit of trickery, I guess, to just say, hey, you got paired with our office, even though I wasn't them. I'd say my name is Stephanie or something, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's exactly right. And so then I would connect with their practice management systems and book them and get them all booked, and the dentist and the receptionist didn't have to botch anything or do anything at all. Besides, they just had that in. So that sort of worked really well. And then this company approached me called Referral Web, and they were like, what they did is they were doing referrals from like a general dentist. So you go into a general dentist, you say, my tooth is broken, and they say, that is broken beyond repair. I can't fix this. I'm going to send you to a specialist, or I'm going to send you to an orthodontist. What they usually do is they usually hand you a piece of paper, and you're on your merry way, and it has their contact information. What Referral Web would do is basically just digitally send that information to the referring office, like the specialist, and they could do the same thing. They could like call that patient or reach out. Same issue. They just sucked at it because they're like, they're receptionists. Nothing against receptionists. I hope you guys know I love those people. I worked at a hotel for a long time, which is basically like the same thing. So nothing against them, but so we just basically they ended up buying out my company here, Seats Dental, and we ended up starting working with Referrably. I basically just integrated the software that I had come up with to automatically reach out to those leads in Referrably. And so that's kind of where I got started there. And now we've kind of rebranded and changed some things. But yeah, and then while I was doing that, I also got connected with, because we're, again, really in the early stages of this. This is the very end of my master's degree. And thought, well, you know what, I'm not making like quite enough money right here. This is like still a really like a startup for the most part, and we're just trying to get to profitable first. So a friend of mine and I decided to start up this other company called Lead Farmer, which was actually a very similar thing to this, just for the general public. So we would just help automate their marketing and sales funnels, so like automated text and things like that. And so those started to pick up at the same time, and I got done with my master's degree in 2020. Oh, jeez. Okay, let me see. Is that like, that was forever. Okay, so that's kind of the story of my college career. So again, just recapping, that is like definitely not a straight shot there. I don't know if you guys, hopefully you've read the Zigzag Principle. I don't know how much Rich Christensen has his hand in here anymore. I'm sure, isn't he, what is he, isn't he someone at the university now?
He was on the board, but he's actually not doing that anymore.
Oh, okay. So, well, he used to be whatever here, the head honcho. And so I like definitely, if you would ask me what I would have done, as soon as I got done with that research project, if you'd asked me, oh, where's your life gonna be at the end of your school career, I have no idea. It took so many chances, and a lot of things I tried and failed, and a lot of things just were out of my control. But that's okay. Again, because I reached like the value that I learned from those things is so much more beneficial. It's easy to be successful. So easy, so easy. It's not as easy to fail and continue. That's hard. That is much harder. So getting past the past couple of years, what I've been working on is we actually rebranded Lead Farmer to Zendev and are offering a little bit more niche products, software products. So we still have like our sales funnel automation and sales automation stuff going on, but that all upsells and flows into our software building stuff. So we build like web applications and mobile applications for these businesses that start to do well selling things or that kind of stuff. So we just finished one up for like it's like Netflix but for spy, like this guy he trains people how to be spies, and so we just built this mobile app. We just launched that like yesterday. So it's kind of cool. And then Referral Web turned into Referrably. We adjusted the way we're going after people, after these offices, and how kind of our capital structure was and how the revenue model is. And so we just kind of rebranded there. And that's also still going. And then the new venture we just recently got into, I just bought into this, is called Birdie's Golf Lounge. Like she said, it's an indoor golf simulator. It's in St. George, but we're actually building one here in Cedar. It should be open, thinking within the next 6 months. Who knows how that will go. Hopefully sometime soon. So let me just back up then, because this is what I do now, and these things, I absolutely love doing these things, but I couldn't have started these things that freshman year of college. I just couldn't have. There's just nothing. I didn't have the information. I didn't have the connections. I didn't have a lot of things, and I didn't have the experience, I guess. And so, for me, the more important thing that you can learn from a mentor, from whoever, is how not to do things. There's a million ways to do things, but there frequently you can repeat what not to do. That you can't count on. So I'm going to tell you what not to do here. First off, actually, this is not a very good way to structure this, but one of the things that it was so valuable for me, especially during these times in college when I struggled, was networking and mentoring. I don't know if when I was here there was a lot of opportunities for mentoring, like one-on-one with some of these people that have done this and been there. So definitely please take advantage of that. and then we'll talk about that in a second. But networking, that's the other thing. There's a lot of opportunities. Not quite as much here in CU, but if you drive to Salt Lake or to Vegas or to California or whatever, there's a lot of events that they have where you'll just network with entrepreneurs, and there's like a barrier, like a language barrier, I feel, between normal people and entrepreneurs. There's just kind of a lingo that they use, like MRR and cost per click, just random things like that. That as you kind of start understanding the world of entrepreneurship, it makes it a little bit easier to communicate with others and also just feel confident in moving forward with what you do. The other thing that's helpful about these things is you can find like niches where you can start diving in. I know everyone's obsessed with ChatGPT now, right? I'm sure you guys just how many? Maybe I shouldn't ask this. I'm sure you all cheat using ChatGPT to write your essays or whatever. I would do it, honestly. Let's be honest. So it's valuable. So there's just a lot of niches and things like that you can learn a lot about in these networking groups. So one of the funnest ones that you'll go to that I encourage you all to go to at some point. It's called Startup Weekend. I can't remember the company that runs those, but we went on a trip. Actually, as a few of the students from the university down to Vegas, and got in these groups. And Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we pitched like ideas. And for those Thursday, Friday, Saturday, at the end of that day of the weekend, we would pitch our now thought through, completed, like tested ideas, and in some instances even built out ideas. And by the end of that, like 3 days, we had finished products, and like people were like ready to like sell sellable products in 3 days. You're working all night long, like you're just hustling to get all that done. But seriously, one of the coolest events because it just like hyper fast tracks you through a startup process. I would really encourage you to try to check one of those out if you're interested. Because you don't even have to have an idea, you can just jump onto somebody else's and just see how it works. And then the final thing about that networking is how to position yourself. That is extremely important because as you'll go through the pool, the wasteland, I guess, of entrepreneurship, there's just so many people out there. But if you can position yourself to have connections and people you can call on to help solve problems, you're going to be in such a better position. All of these things here, could not have done by myself. No chance. You have to know people, and that's half of entrepreneurship is just being a good salesman of yourself, not necessarily your idea. If you look at Shark Tank, a lot of the times, if the idea is whatever, but a lot of the sharks will be really interested in a person. You just say, you're the type of person who I want to invest in. And especially when you're just starting out, that is the most important thing that you can be, is someone who they want to invest in, not have a product that someone wants to invest in. Although that does help. Okay. So number 2 is the mentoring portion of that. Do they still have that here where they do mentoring?
They integrated a lot into the competitions. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, outside of the university, you should still try to get this done. Ask people to help you, to mentor you, because, like I said, those people have been through this all. I think if part of the problem that I think that I had and saw among the students here is if I don't necessarily have a problem, I'm just not sure what I'm doing. Or I'm I don't know, maybe this person doesn't want to take the time to mentor me or, discuss questions I have. I saw that a lot, and I think that is not a good excuse. I think that you should always be searching out mentors, even if it doesn't benefit you or them right now. You should always search those people out, because 5 years down the road, they might call you up and say, hey, I have someone here who is interested in this this thing. Could I connect you guys? That right there, person who is a mentor is someone who's probably well connected, and you definitely at the very least want to always be in contact with those people. People who when I got mentored here a lot in college, I still reach out. I still email those people to this day, like once a month, and just tell them how I'm doing. If you maintain those relationships, like you can call upon them later. You can, if something comes up, you need money or you need assets of any sort. That mentor, who you've warmed up. I know that sounds really like robotic, but it's really helpful. It really is, like in practicality. So yeah, like I said, all those people, they can connect you to resources, to people, they can tell you what to avoid. And one piece of that I would just keep in mind is sometimes they might tell you what to do. Take that with a grain of salt. There's some really good people, really good mentors, but you also need to make sure you make your own decisions. Don't just blindly trust the mentor, which happens so frequently these days. Everyone has an opinion. And someone who can expand the possibilities of your mind, So what I'd like to do with you guys is, let's make this a little bit interactive. I've been kind of droning on for a while. Let's just do this little activity. I learned this up at the University of Utah when I was up there for a little while. Let's just walk through like the process for creating a new business. I'm just curious, actually, how many of you guys like have a business or are working on a business? Okay, so good amount of you, at least half. That's pretty awesome. Geez, I would have definitely lost all the speakers or the pitch competitions against you guys. There was like 4 people who were starting businesses when I was here. Okay, we have this little game that I want to do. It'll take like 5-10 minutes. I have to explain it though, because this looks really random. I used Dolly to generate this image, so it's full. I didn't draw this, but I'm a terrible artist, so that's as good as you're going to get. So it's called Toasters and Toilets, and I don't know why they call it that exactly, but one of the ideas that someone came up with, and it was such a good idea that they named the game after this. But what you do is you just take like some problems in the world, just random things or things that you can see potentially improve. They go like, this kind of sucks. And you just brainstorm for a few minutes and say, this is how I would improve this item, and it can be done. I mean, what idiot would come up with the idea of, hey, what if I put an air mattress in my room and like charge people to stay on my air mattress? Well, Airbnb, that sounded like a dumb idea at the time, but now obviously everyone does that. It's not even a question anymore. So what this is someone came up with the idea of, when I go to the bathroom, it reeks, right? So how do you solve that problem? Because the fan is always up here at the top, right? Oh, sorry, I'm going to get closer to this. The fan is always up at the top, and so if you're sitting on the toilet, the smell goes past your face all the way to the top. So what do? Well, your first obvious rational thought is, let's just hang like gymnastic rings, and you hold yourself up above the toilet, and then you can put a fan on the back of the wall right here, so the smell will go into the fan. It's $1 million idea, right? Okay, maybe not. But what the point is it gets you thinking. This may not be a feasible idea. I mean, I don't know how strong you guys are to hold yourselves up, but I probably wouldn't be able to. Not a great idea in practicality, but the point is ideas sometimes sound dumb at first. They really do. Like anyone, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all of these people were like laughed out of places, right? Before people started to realize, oh, actually that might be a really good solution to this problem. So we're going to try this for just a few minutes. I just want to see what you guys can come up with, see how really smart you are. So I wrote up some random ideas, like some random problems I just, you just see from day to day. These are big problems. Some of them are big problems. The Thanos problem, just FYI, is removing half the population is dumb because you just reduced half the supply chain. The problem isn't population, the problem is supply chain. There's enough food in the world to feed everybody, it's just getting it to them. So just wanted to point that one out in case you didn't know what that was. And then some incremental problems you could do is just like, how could you improve windshield wipers? How could you improve an umbrella? Those things that we've just had for so long, is there a way to disrupt those? So let's just take like, what time is it? Let's take like 6 minutes or so, 7 minutes. And just, if you guys would get in groups of like 3 or 4 or whatever, just pick one, just as a group, pick one of these and just brainstorm some random ideas. Remember, No idea is bad right now, all right? It could be the worst idea in the whole planet, toast this toilet thing. But that's okay. Like, that's where you need to start at. So let's just like, you know, I'm supposed to be like a lecture, but let's just like break it up for like just a few minutes. Cool.
Perfect.
Okay, finish up real quick. All right, I'm interested to hear. Let's hear some of your guys' good ideas. Who wants to volunteer? Come on, you guys. I know you've come up with some good ideas.
All right, hear me out.
Okay.
You wake up in the morning, you got someplace to be, right? Especially right now in the wintertime. You come outside, oh no, my car is covered in ice. Not everybody has like the nice features of maybe a remote start or something where you can heat your car up in the morning. And you might not even remember to do it because you're so tired. And so we thought maybe you could make like a car timer that you could install with some, like a Tesla or whatever, some plug into your car where you can set a timer or a set time where your car will start in the morning and will start to heat up and defrost. And so you don't have to get into a freezing cold car and see your breath while you're waiting for your windows to on ice.
I like that.
So we haven't thought of a name of it, but we'll call it the car timer.
Okay, I like it. As I say, with a Tesla, I mean, they have like an open API. You could probably build something like that
So
in there.
Tesla, or maybe you could develop something that you could input into a regular car.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right, I like it. Very good. Who else? Let's hear some other ideas. Okay, here they come. All right. Let's go back there.
On your list, you have SUU parking.
Okay.
Parking garage or like the parking like elevators.
All right. I like it. Parking garage or elevators. That would be sweet, like a Carvana style. I think they're probably selling their elevators for cheap now. They're running out of business, right? Okay, what else? Let's go right here.
So I got married recently, and the storing the kitchen stuff, it's terrible. It's awful.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
we thought
agree.
if we get
I'll
like
buy
a
it from you. If you have a good one, I'll buy it right now. So let's go.
And so the only extra space we could find in a tiny little apartment is on the ceiling, right? So you get like some command strip stuff with like some like a rubber cage, and then you can just pull it down, and then you put all the stuff in and push it back up.
Oh, I like it. That's good.
Pretty mobile.
As long as you have like higher ceilings, I guess, right?
Next best white color.
Yes, yeah. I like
At
it.
that point, they don't even care what it does. They'll buy it.
Yeah, you can put anything in Target, right? Back there.
With the idea that unfortunately a lot of colleges and public schooling can be a lot more streamlined. There are a lot of things that we learn and they just expect us to be like, you're going to use this, and it's like, okay, but when and where? And then they never give you that answer. And it'd be a lot more conducive to your learning as well as your understanding if they were to like actually give you those examples, or even do, while you are learning those things, provide those examples. And not only that, but when it comes to even like within the engineering department, there are classes that we have to take before we take other classes that the teacher's like, yeah, you need like one thing from that class, and I could have taught you that in this one. And so it's like, it'd be a lot more streamlined if experts were really the ones putting all these things together sometimes, instead of these groups of people who really honestly are not experts in their field, but understand enough to know, hey, this is probably what we're gonna need.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So I think like all of those ideas have merit. Like we came up with that in 5 minutes. I mean, if you put 10 minutes of thought into it, you'd have twice as good an idea. So I think any of those things, and I'm sure all of the other things that you guys have thought of, are potential. Maybe they're not, because I've run into a few that are not good ideas, and it's okay. This is not working anymore. Let me go here. There we go. So, okay, so now you guys have this idea in your head of like a really good idea, right? What do you do? When do I put money into this? When do I start spending a lot of time? When do I start talking to people to like, get them on board or do whatever? And I noticed in my time here is we do a lot of analysis paralysis. So you just analyze it for ever, and then you kind of like lose your excitement for it, and you're just like, well, maybe I just won't do this or whatever, without really coming to like a good conclusion as to whether that is the case or not. So I feel like you have to be a little bit more scientific, because if you're gonna have to start sometime, but you don't want to start the wrong thing, and those two things collide a lot. So I'm gonna make this fast. So first thing I would do is just set yourself a deadline. If you do have a good idea, set a deadline for like, when do I need to decide this thing? When do I need to kill it or continue? And you're allowed to have one like repositioning of time. So if you get to that period and you say, I'm not quite ready yet, like there might be some more stuff that could be put into this to decide if it's a good idea or not, then you're allowed, take one more period of time to do that. But don't, beyond that, don't waste a ton of time. Don't waste a year just thinking about an idea. You'll also need to make sure you have a good risk to reward ratio, because I've seen a lot of companies that have really high risk for sort of a low reward. Like, if you have a really high risk, it has to be a really high reward, and vice versa. If you can start a business that's low risk, low reward, and that's fantastic. That's like, it's called a base hit. Like, you made it to base, right? You're not swinging for the fences on a low risk to low reward. You're just building building assets. You're growing a company small and slow, and that's just fine. So you just need to make sure that ratio is there. The next thing you should do is define and test your assumptions. So a lot of times you're just going to make assumptions about things because you don't know what they are yet. You'll assume people will buy something. You'll assume that this product will work or whatever. And with street credit, that was one of the first things we did. Was we went to a couple of the property management groups and we're like, is this something that would benefit you? Like, would you be willing to make a deal? Because those are the people receiving the rents, and it doesn't necessarily benefit them apart from, it just consolidates their payment processing. So that is an assumption that we had that we were able to kind of work through simply by just making a conversation. The next thing that I see, that you need to take a look at as you're starting is like usability. Like, does this really solve a problem? So what I usually do is say, like, if you were to rate this product from 0 to 100, where would you rate that? And there's going to be a whole slew of people. So like, this is just a standard bell curve. That's where everyone is going to be. Like, for the most part, you're going to have a lot of people who are like, oh, this is a cool idea or whatever. You're going to have some people who say, I hate this, and some people who are going to be like, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. These people don't matter. They will never matter. They don't exist. Forget about them for your idea, because they don't ask them. Your mom's always going to be over here, so don't ask her either, because everything you have is perfect. What you're trying to do is you're trying to talk to the people who say 5, 6, or 7, or 8. So really just, anyway, somewhere right there. And those are the people who you should listen to when they give you advice. So if you have this idea, you don't accidentally want to create an idea that's skewed. So like, if this is our skew, we don't want your bell curve to be pushed over, because then you just don't have a good idea. That's just not a good idea. Like, there might be still some people who like it, but what you want is to make an idea that has this demand, and then you'll be in good shape, because then what you can do is when you figure out the real problem for these people, you'll solve that problem. Once you're done with that, then you can start to scale. And so this is kind of what I've been learning from as I've been not failing at business. Product market fit. When can you determine that you have the right product, and when should you start to put resources on it? When should you start to grow? And I do not have much time left, but I will talk about this. Swamprom, if you've ever heard of that, but it's word of mouth marketing versus promotional marketing. Basically, how are you getting people to buy your stuff? Let's say you do have the idea, you determine based on this graph that like there's enough people who would want it, who would pay for it, so you start to develop it, you start to make a sale or two, and then you say, how do I know when I should put gasoline on the fire? And basically you say, how are people coming in? Are they coming in because of like promotional marketing? Like, is it just my social media pages that are bringing people in? Or are there other people who are bringing other people in? Like, the people that I bring in, are they bringing other people in? And that's kind of what you need to determine. Once you get to like a certain score, so for every one person I bring in from word of mouth marketing, I'm also bringing in one for promotional marketing or like advertising or something like that. Once you get to like that one, that's when you need to hit the gas, because that means that you've created a semi-viral product in a way, even if it's not a lot. Like our Birdie's company, part of the reason I bought into this was for that reason. I realized that they had enough people who were saying, this is really cool, I'm going to bring my friends. And that's when you need to start moving fast. So that's, not super, like, maybe down the road for some of you, but it's still, like, you can still, that's something that can happen in college pretty soon. I mean, look at Facebook or any of these companies. So I'm going to just, and I have a bunch of other cool things I wanted to talk about, but yeah, look at all those keys. So I wanted to share with you at least my reading list. I think these things are these are really valuable things, and this is my order of them. So write those down, read them, love them, memorize them. Maybe successful. Okay, let's see. Right before we end, someone had a question over here.
Yeah, so the word of mouth, how do you track that? By surveys or?
So it's going to be different every company. The Birdies, we built a software for Birdies to basically track like through cookies and things like that where people are coming in from. And so we have like a referral station as well, and like through the advertising it tracks what they're coming in through, or if they're repeat customers, all of those kinds of things. And so for that company specifically, I was able to determine that, to say, oh, actually it looks like this person came in through an ad, or this person just showed up on the website, like searching organically. We count that as a prompt. But when someone is a repeat customer and brings people with them, so it's really easy for Birdies to determine that. It may not be quite as easy for other products, but it's just a simple example. So, yeah, we better be done. Does anybody have any other questions? One more question, maybe.